She checked in under a fake name, hoping to stay unnoticed. What she didn't expect was a receptionist with an attitude and an agenda. Karoline Levitt, once a rising star with everything to lose, returns to her husband's luxury hotel after months in hiding. But when a bold, liberal front desk clerk humiliates her in front of guests, not knowing who she really is, the entire situation spirals into a national scandal. What happens next will shock everyone. Subscribe and post in the comments, where are you watching from? Karoline Levitt's return to New York was shrouded in deliberate anonymity. Once a celebrated conservative journalist and razor-sharp political commentator, she had been forced into a self-imposed exile after a scandal that ripped apart her career, reputation, and even the foundation of her marriage. The public's roar of accusations had reduced her to a ghostly figure, a shadow of the influencer she once was. Now, several months later, Karoline reemerges in the city, her identity hidden beneath layers of careful disguise and a new, assumed name. As she stepped off the late-night train, the bustling, neon-lit streets of Manhattan enveloped her in a dazzling yet indifferent embrace. Every echoing footfall on the rain-slicked pavement reminded her of the relentless whispers and bitter betrayals that still haunted her memory. The scandal that had shattered her public image and isolated her from the circle of power continued to haunt her dreams. More painful still were the memories of a once-cherished marriage now reduced to an ongoing, clandestine divorce. With her estranged husband emerging as the proud owner of a luxurious hotel, the very establishment where destiny was about to force an unexpected confrontation. Determined to reclaim a sense of peace and solitude, Karoline had meticulously planned this incognito return. She had booked a room at the opulent hotel under a false name, a desperate bid to escape the ever-watchful eyes of both the media and her former supporters. The taxi ride through the sleepless city offered her a brief moment of reflection as she mulled over the cataclysmic fallout. The public disgrace, the personal betrayals, and the corrosive impact of a once loyal audience turned adversarial. With every passing block, the heavy weight of lost prestige pressed on her. But so did a cautious hope that in anonymity she might rebuild her shattered spirit. Arriving at the hotel, Karoline felt a surge of conflicting emotions. The grand, modern facade stood as a cold reminder of the life she had once shared with her husband, a life now marred by deceit and scandal. Every slick surface and polished detail of the lobby seemed designed to exude luxury while remaining utterly unfeeling. In that moment, she recalled the sting of public humiliation and the personal betrayal that had sent her spiraling into darkness. Yet, amid the turmoil, a small, resolute spark of determination kindled within her. She intended to secure her solitude, if only for a short while, a momentary refuge to nurse her wounded pride and rediscover a sense of inner calm. With a deep, steadying breath, Karoline approached the polished entrance of the hotel. The receptionist's desk and the muted hum of early morning activity offered little comfort, yet she pressed forward. Dressed in understated clothes that cloaked her true identity and concealed her past, she reached out to open the door. In that pivotal moment of crossing the threshold, all her pain and resilience converged into a single, silent act of defiance and renewal. Karoline strode into the hotel lobby with a careful grace, determined to shield her true identity behind a crafted facade. As she approached the reception desk, she couldn't help but notice the modern, airy space, a stark contrast to the heavy memories still she carried. Behind the polished marble counter sat Bella, the hotel's receptionist, a young woman whose liberal sensibilities shone through in every expression and subtle gesture. Bella's eyes sparkled with a mix of mischief and disdain as she took in the image of the elegant, yet unassuming guest before her. Unaware of the secret history that Karoline carried, and the fact that this mysterious woman was none other than Karoline Levitt herself, Bella greeted her with a tone laced in sarcasm. "Welcome to the Regency," she drawled casually, a slight smirk playing on her lips. "Let me guess, another typical Republican lady with $1 million account, daring to seek refuge? Funny, we rarely see your type here." Karoline's heart skipped for a moment, but she maintained a cool composure. Internally, she recorded every word. Despite the sting hidden in Bella's provocative playfulness, Karoline chose silence as her shield. Her eyes, however, flickered with a quiet intensity as she regarded the receptionist, observing every nuance of Bella's demeanor, every inflection that betrayed a personal bias. Bella continued, her comments becoming increasingly pointed. "I suppose you must be expecting something extraordinary from us, considering your pedigree?" Her words, draped in condescension, were delivered with a derisive laugh, as if Bella assumed she was interacting with one of those affluent, unapproachable sort. The room, filled with the soft hum of activity from early check-ins and muted conversations, suddenly felt charged with a subtle tension born of unspoken political divides. Karoline, holding her silence with a practiced restraint, offered a polite smile that did little to mask her inner resolve. Though every word Bella uttered aimed to belittle, Karoline's calm exterior ensured no immediate confrontation would erupt. Instead, she silently noted each remark, each sneer, as if documenting evidence of disrespect for a later moment when the truth might demand its due. Bella's demeanor shifted ever so slightly as she glanced at Karoline's reservation information on the screen. She mused aloud. "It seems you've booked under a name that doesn't quite match the esteemed reputation I'd expect. Are you sure you haven't gotten your details mixed up?" There was a provocative cadence to her voice that suggested she relished the opportunity to needle the guest further. A challenge issued with a knowing look, as though she were enjoying a private joke at the expense of a presumed rich conservative. The conversation at the counter was a subtle clash of worlds. On one side stood Bella, unabashedly liberal in her commentary and ready to pass judgment based on first impressions alone. On the other was Karoline, who had spent months buried beneath the scars of public humiliation and personal betrayal, now in search of solitude and redemption away from her tumultuous past. Without a word, Karoline allowed Bella's taunts to wash over her, her silence speaking louder than any reprimand. In that unspoken moment, the stage was set, a rift between assumed identities, ready to explode into revelations yet to come. As Bella processed the check-in with an air of superiority and casual mockery, the hotel lobby continued its subdued rhythm. Yet for Karoline, every underside remark and cynical smile was a reminder of a world that had once celebrated her in headlines, now reduced to mere whispers behind polished reception desks. With quiet dignity and a steady gaze, she accepted the key to her room, already bracing herself for what might come next in this unexpected homecoming. After a few tense moments at the reception desk, Bella's smirk deepened as she tapped away at the computer, deliberately dragging out the check-in process. With an almost theatrical flourish, she announced, "It appears that all our premium rooms are fully booked for the night. However, we do have one room left, a room that truly embodies the spirit of, shall we say, egalitarian justice." Her tone, dripping with sarcasm, hung in the air like a challenge. Karoline's eyes narrowed imperceptibly as she listened, her guarded demeanor remaining unchanged even as Bella's condescending banter filled the lobby. "Your room is on the 7th floor, overlooking our service elevator," Bella continued with exaggerated cheer, rolling her eyes as she added, "It's certainly not what our distinguished guests usually expect, but I'm sure you'll find its humble nature, if not charming, at least character-building." A few heads turned in the lobby. Other guests exchanged uneasy glances, their expressions cramping at the sight of such brazen insolence in a public space. Unable to ignore the deliberate mockery, Karoline subtly slid her hand into the inside pocket of her jacket, retrieving her smartphone. The cool metal provided a small measure of power as she began recording the unfolding interaction. "Excuse me, Bella." Karoline's voice was low yet firm. "I believe I am entitled to a proper explanation as to why I was assigned this room." Her calm inquiry only elicited a mocking laugh from Bella. "Oh, darling," Bella drawled, leaning in as if sharing a scandalous secret. "We pride ourselves on fairness here, even if fairness means that everyone gets their just share. And tonight, it appears that your just share is our finest example of what we call economical accommodation." Her words cut through the hum of the lobby, attracting the attention of onlookers. Another guest, a well-dressed woman waiting in the reception area, tilted her head in disapproval, while a couple nearby exchanged worried whispers. Bella glanced around with an air of superiority, clearly enjoying the spectacle. "You see," she went on, "we believe in treating all our guests equally, and since you, miss, might be too accustomed to luxury and refinement, this is a little reminder that not everything in life is as polished as it might seem on television." Her voice, laced with provocative irony, resonated with the clatter of the lobby. Karoline, still silent and unyielding under the barrage of ad hominem remarks, recorded every word. In that moment, each mocking syllable became evidence of an unprofessional abuse of power, a behavior that could not be swept under the rug. Despite the sting of the humiliation, Karoline's inner resolve was stealing further. She knew that this record of conversation would serve as a crucial testament to her dignity and the unwarranted mistreatment she had endured. Bella, clearly satisfied with her theatrics, handed over the room key with an almost perfunctory glance at Karoline. "Enjoy your stay," she said in a mockingly cordial tone. "And do let us know if you need anything, though I doubt any reprieve from the reality of life will be forthcoming in that room." As Karoline accepted the key, the echoes of Bella's taunts reverberated around her, mingling with the sympathetic murmurs of nearby guests who had silently borne witness. Karoline turned away from the reception desk, feelings swirling within her. A mix of deep hurt and a ferocious determination to reclaim her voice in a world that had so casually tried to strip it away. The act of recording that conversation was small yet potent, a silent promise that the truth would not be hidden, and that she would no longer be the victim of casual cruelty. With the room key clutched in her hand, a stark symbol of the injustice she had just faced, Karoline stepped away from the reception area. The polished marble floors of the hotel now felt less like a gateway to temporary solace and more like the beginning of a battle for her identity and dignity. Not long after Karoline received her room key from Bella, an observant hotel employee, Alex, who had been working quietly behind the front desk, glanced at the reservation record on his tablet and suddenly recoiled. The name on the reservation wasn't merely a pseudonym. It bore subtle marks that hinted at a past all too familiar. Quietly, Alex approached his supervisor, whispering that the guest checking in might be someone of great importance. Within minutes, murmurs began to spread among the staff. Moments later, word reached Bella. She was summoned to a quick meeting with the hotel management, a tense gathering marked by hushed voices and exchanged glances laden with disbelief. As the truth unfolded, Bella's confident veneer began to crack. The management revealed that the guest in question was none other than Karoline Leavitt, the once high-profile conservative journalist whose scandal had rocked the nation. Karoline was, in fact, the estranged wife of Alex's boss and the very woman whose reclusive return had been the subject of industry gossip. Bella's shock was palpable. 1 minute, she had been indulging in sarcastic banter, mocking the stereotypical rich conservative lady for her presumed privilege and detachment. Now, as the realization set in that her target was not a faceless newcomer but the very same Karoline Leavitt, the wife of the hotel owner, her expressions turned from condescension to horror. The gravity of her actions overwhelmed her. She recognized that every cynical remark, every dismissive gesture had been directed at a woman of considerable influence and controversy. Before Bella could process her mounting dread, the unthinkable happened. A fellow staff member, who had captured a portion of Bella's public humiliating display on her smartphone, had already uploaded the video onto TikTok. Within minutes, the clip exploded online, igniting a wildfire of viral reactions. Social media audiences, equally partisan and fiercely opinionated, began dissecting every word and gesture. Hashtags and memes flooded the platform. Hashtag Karoline returns, hashtag hotel scandal, and hashtag enough is enough. Each post a stark reminder of the public stinging verdict on arrogance and injustice. The hotel lobby, once a scene of subdued luxury, was now abuzz with whispers and frantic phone calls from anxious management. The video, with its unmistakable clarity in capturing Bella's brazen mockery and the cruel assignment of the awful room, became the center of national outrage. News outlets were quick to pick up the story, and by early evening, what had started as a private slight had escalated into a full-blown scandal that threatened to tear the very fabric of the hotel's reputation apart. Bella, now caught in a vortex of public censure, tried desperately to rally her composure. But the damage was done. The revelation of Karoline's true identity added an extra layer of gravity to the situation. Not only had she disrespected a high-profile guest, but she had also exposed a personal betrayal, inflicting a public humiliation that intertwined professional misconduct with a sensitive, ongoing divorce. Back at the reception desk, Bella's earlier condescension had mutated into panic and regret. Elsewhere in the hotel, management wrestled with the fallout. The viral video had reached every corner of the digital world, and they were left with no choice but to confront the scandal head-on. As Karoline, still cloaked in dignified quietude, made her way silently toward the elevator, she was unaware of the magnitude of the storm that her unintentional reappearance had unleashed. All that was left was a single unyielding truth. The past, no matter how deeply buried, always finds a way of surfacing, often in the most unexpected and public of ways. The scandal's digital echo was growing louder by the minute. As notifications of viral videos and outraged comments flooded his phone, Alex, Karoline's estranged husband and the very owner of the hotel, felt a surge of disbelief and fury. He had built his reputation on impeccable service and a prestigious brand image. The revelation that his own establishment had become the stage for Karoline's public humiliation was a blow too crushing to ignore. Without hesitation, Alex stormed into the lobby. His usually composed demeanor was replaced by raw indignation as he demanded immediate answers. Approaching the reception desk where Bella still stood, he fixed her with a steely glare. "Explain to me now why you would treat a guest in such a deplorable manner, especially one who happens to be my wife," he thundered, each word slicing through the ambient hum of whispered incredulity among the guests. His voice carried the weight of both betrayal and authority, reverberating off the polished marble walls. In the midst of the escalating confrontation, Karoline emerged from the shadows, her eyes meeting Alex's with a blend of calm resolve and unspoken pain. Standing beside him, she reiterated, "I demand a public apology, not just for the humiliation inflicted on me, but for the damage done to my dignity and reputation." Her tone was measured yet fierce, a clear reflection of the inner strength honed through months of isolation and recovery since the scandal that had once uprooted her life. Bella stammered, visibly caught off guard by the gravity of Alex's wrath and Karoline's unyielding presence. I meant no harm," she attempted to explain, but her words fell flat amid the storm of disapproval from both management and onlookers. The confrontation spilled into a heated argument as hotel staff and guests began recording the exchange on their smartphones. Every outrage-fueled comment, every tearful rebuttal added fuel to the rapidly spreading fire of scandal. Within minutes, the situation escalated beyond the hotel's walls. News reporters and social media influencers gathered outside the lobby, broadcasting live footage of the verbal clash. Headlines emerged almost instantly, painting a picture of a high-profile domestic conflict unfolding in a luxury hotel. A scandal that threatened not only to tarnish Alex's business empire but also to upend the carefully constructed public narratives of both Karoline and her husband. Alex's voice, though heavy with the weight of authority, betrayed a hint of personal conflict. "This isn't just about professional decorum. It's about respect, dignity, and accountability. I will not stand for any further insults in my establishment," he declared, his tone mixing prejudice with a sharpened determination to reclaim control. Yet, beneath his bluster lay the quieter pain of realizing how far apart his present life had drifted from the promises of their past. Karoline's persistent gaze held him accountable in ways that money or status never could. As the televised scandal deepened, the confrontation became a national conversation. Debates over the abuse of power, the boundaries between personal vendettas and professional conduct, and the role of media in private disputes surged into public discourse. The hotel's management scrambled to contain the fallout, fearing that this incident might irreparably damage their legacy and reputation. In the midst of the chaos, Karoline's dignified stand for her honor contrasted sharply with Alex's initial attempts to suppress the uproar. The split between them widened as her demand for a sincere, public apology clashed with his insistence on controlling the narrative. With the eyes of an entire nation upon them, the era of secrecy was over, and the raw, painful truth that had been suppressed was now forcing itself into the light. Within hours of the heated confrontation in the lobby, the echoes of scandal had rippled far beyond the hotel's marble walls. As Bella attempted to salvage her reputation from the viral debacle, she turned to social media, a move that would only deepen her public undoing. In a desperate bid to control the narrative, Bella posted a series of curt, biting comments aimed directly at Karoline, accusing her of using her newfound fame as an excuse to live in luxury while the rest of society suffered. Her messages, far from exuding humility, reeked of arrogance and bitterness, prompting immediate backlash from an online community that had already rallied around Karoline's cause. The response was swift and merciless. Tweets condemning Bella began to flood the digital sphere, and posts tagged with #RespectCaroline and #EnoughIsEnough gained traction. Internet users found humor in Bella's attempted spin, turning her public criticisms into memes that mocked the receptionist's lack of professionalism. Employees from across the hospitality industry and even casual observers took to online forums to express their solidarity with Karoline and their outrage at Bella's unprofessional behavior. It soon became clear that Bella's voice, once so confident behind the reception desk, had become a liability in the eyes of the public. As the online storm intensified, the hotel management was forced to intervene. The high stakes of the scandal, now making national headlines, left the hotel's owner, Alex, with little choice but to distance his establishment from the unfolding debacle. In an internal meeting rife with tension and urgent discussions about reputational damage, Alex decided that Bella's conduct was entirely unacceptable. Less than 24 hours after her scathing social media post surfaced, Bella was fired from her position. Yet, even in the face of termination, Bella vowed to fight back. She threatened legal action against both the hotel and Karoline, claiming her freedom of expression had been curtailed, and alleging that her dismissal was a result of politically biased vendetta. Meanwhile, the once fractured narrative around Karoline was being reshaped by a rising tide of public empathy. Invited to speak on a late-evening televised news special, Karoline appeared on screen with poised dignity. Her calm, measured voice carried a message that resonated deeply with a fractured public yearning for honesty and respect. In a society where words are tossed around as weapons, and where the powerful frequently silence the truth, we must remember that respect, freedom of speech, and personal dignity are not mere privileges, but fundamental rights, she declared. Her speech, interwoven with personal anecdotes of betrayal and resilience, struck a fervent chord with viewers. With each articulation of her core beliefs, Karoline transformed her painful experience into a rallying cry for accountability and reform. The nation, captivated by the unfolding drama, watched as Bella's fall from grace became a case study in the consequences of unchecked arrogance and unprofessionalism. Bella's attempts to discredit Karoline only cemented the latter's position as a symbol of strength against ad hominem attacks and political manipulation. As the scandal swirled through both traditional media and social networks, the public's verdict was clear. When truth is suppressed and dignity is trampled, the fall from grace is inevitable. In the aftermath of the explosive scandal, with the hotel's luxurious corridors echoing with gossip and outrage, Karoline Levitt realized that reclaiming her life meant more than just defending her dignity. It required a decisive break from a past that had betrayed her at every turn. The hurtful humiliation at the Regency Hotel, the viral video of Bella's disdain, and the bitter confrontation with Alex had all converged to expose a truth Karoline could no longer ignore. With resolve forged from months of grueling introspection and public scrutiny, she took the first step toward a future free of the man and life that had once defined her. Late one restless evening, in the quiet sanctuary of her modest New York apartment, Karoline sat at a long-forgotten desk that had once witnessed the triumphs of her journalistic career. With meticulous care, she drafted her official divorce papers, her pen gliding across the paper with deliberate finality. Every stroke was a reclamation of her lost pride, a clear message that she would no longer allow herself to be manipulated or humiliated. Alex's betrayal and the painful revelation that his hotel had served as the unwitting stage for her public disgrace now fueled her determination to build something new, a life that reflected her true values, not the distorted image sculpted by scandal and political vendettas. Once the papers were submitted, the divorce process began in earnest. The proceedings were as dramatic as they were inevitable. In tightly packed courtrooms, the intimate details of their crumbling union were laid bare before a captivated press. Yet, while Alex fought to preserve his crumbling reputation, Karoline stood unyielding, her eyes clear and her heart steeled against further attacks. She made no attempt to exact revenge. Her focus was on liberation. With the truth in hand and the public's empathy firmly behind her, Karoline emerged as a figure not of victimhood but of renewal. With the divorce finalized and the public scandal gradually receding into the background, Karoline felt a stirring of hope, a quiet invitation to reimagine her future. Determined to recast herself on her own terms, she decided to leave the bitter memories of New York behind. Washington, with its vibrant political energy and a burgeoning community of independent thinkers, beckoned as a place where she could rebuild her career and redefine her purpose without the weight of past misdeeds. Packing only the essentials and the indelible lessons born from her trials, Karoline boarded a flight to Washington, D.C. The long journey, conducted in reflective silence punctuated only by the soft hum of airplane engines, became a metaphor for the transformation underway within her. In that suspended space between what was and what could be, she envisioned a career that harnessed her formidable talent for investigative journalism and incisive political commentary. No longer would she align herself with the rigid ideological confines of the past. Instead, she would draw on her experiences to champion a truer, more compassionate dialogue in the public sphere. In Washington, Karoline quickly began to carve out her new identity. She embraced opportunities to speak at independent media forums, published thought-provoking op-eds that questioned conventional narratives, and connected with a diverse network of budding activists and established reformers. Each conversation, every published article, and all the impassioned debates harkened back to the core of who she had always been. A woman unafraid to challenge prevailing power and demand respect, both for herself and for those silenced by injustice. Yet, amid this renaissance, Karoline never forgot the painful truth of her journey. Standing before a modest crowd during her first independent interview, she spoke with measured intensity. Never humiliate someone you don't understand. Perhaps, before you, lies a person who is capable of changing the world, or destroying yours. With those words, she encapsulated the wisdom gleaned from her past struggles and signaled the promise of a future built on earned respect and uncompromising integrity. Karoline Levitt's story had come full circle, from a celebrated commentator marred by scandal to a woman reborn through adversities, ready now to reshape the narrative on her own terms. I hope you enjoyed this story. Leave a comment, sharing your thoughts about it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new and equally exciting stories. See you in the next video.